Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard and Son. I'm Vito Calisi. That's Jonathan Barron, reminding you to rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Apple, Spotify goes a long way. Normally, we start the episode off with a clip at the front, sometimes a question, sometimes a moment. But John, after a really frustrating series, I thought, why don't we just get right into it?
Yeah, I mean, look, frustrating at times, exciting at others. Um, you know, Over the weekend, the Mets, I think, inflicted a lot of self-harm, and there are some things that need to be cleaned up here moving forward by this Mets team. For the majority of this season, I would say, up until the ninth inning, Game One against the Pittsburgh Pirates, the defense had been pretty lickety split for this Mets team. In that ninth inning, the Mets had a couple defensive miscues. It happened again in the third game of that Pirates series, and you saw it happen on Sunday night in the Bronx in the first inning. Mark Vientos, and then Pete Alonso in the eighth inning on his throw home. And these are things that we've talked about, how the Mets have not been giving outs away to the other team, how they've been forcing the issue on the bases, which they did in this series, and it helped them win a game in Game Two. Juan Soto stealing third base and then stealing on a sacrifice fly, and Jeff McNeil coming in and scoring on a wild pitch. It didn't really get too far from Austin Wells on Sunday night, but it's the defense that needs to, I think, recalibrate here, clean up some small things that are costing the Mets and putting extra strain on this pitching staff. And then in turn, the second thing the Mets need to clean up on the pitching side is the walks, because the Mets issued way too many free passes in this game. They walked 7 guys on Friday night, 4 on Saturday, and 8 on Sunday night. The game is still going on, by the way. Vito and I got a head start on this episode. You could see it over Vito's right shoulder there. So
I was going to edit that. I was going to punch in it.
I didn't realize that. But regardless, issuing free passes, it just makes life on the other team too easy. And, Subway Series, New York supremacy, big brother, little brother, all the discourse that comes with the Subway Series. Here's the truth about the Subway Series. Up until the bottom of the eighth inning on Sunday, that game was very close game. Could have been decided by one swing. Francisco Lindor hit a ball at the top of the seventh inning that looked like it was going to get over Aaron Judge's head, possibly out to give the Mets a lead. It didn't, but this was a closely contested series, and the Yankees are a very, very good ball club. Yes, they lose Juan Soto. Yes, Giancarlo Stanton's still on the shelf right now, but they went out. They used the resources that they would have put into Juan Soto into many pieces. Trent Grisham's having an all-star season. Aaron Judge is having one of the best starts to a season we have ever seen. This is a good team, and this was a good battle this weekend between two very good teams. And for the Mets to play sloppy defense at times, and for the Mets to issue as many free passes as they did, they're helping a Yankee team, a Yankee lineup that just does not need the help. And in the end, it came back to bite them, and the Yankees take 2 of 3. But Vito, guess what? You know what? For all the Met fans out there that are feeling bad, worrying, you know what happened this weekend in Major League Baseball?
What?
The Los Angeles Angels swept the LA Dodgers in a 3-game series in the Freeway Series. It's rivalry week in baseball. That happened. So, things happen. You move on. You pick yourself up. The Mets are going to Boston. There's no off day. Another tough challenge. You're going to see Garrett Crochet on Wednesday, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And you know what? Go back to listen to what Brandon Nimmo told us when I asked him about how the team copes with losses and what fans should know about that process, because to me, it was very telling, and it was kind of reassuring to hear the actual mental process that a player and the team goes through after a tough loss or a tough weekend series like this one.
You know what? You also, if you want to go back to listen to the Jeremy Hefner interview, Jeremy Hefner even has said it. The walks are too much. If there's one thing his pitching staff needs to do, it's to limit the walks. You can't give free passes, especially in games like this where these games are so tight. I mean, even go to the 7th inning when Brazoban has nobody on, and then guys get certain walked on, and then Volpe really bailed the Mets out of a jam. If Volpe goes out there and just stands there, the Yankees take the lead already. So, the walks are something that this team will figure out. That will self-regulate. But it's just frustrating. And then, John, you said the thing about the Angels sweeping the Dodgers, and then I was reading some reactions. I was reading some tweets before I hopped on. And one tweet that made me laugh was somebody said, "Man, this team really makes me angry. This 2025 team is nothing like the 2024 team. the 2024 team never lost games like this. And I bring that up to remind fans the glove toss didn't even happen till May 29th last year.
Right, Francisco. Go ahead, Vito. Sorry.
You are going to lose games. You're going to lose games to good teams. You're going to lose games to bad teams. You're going to lose games to teams you hate. But I'm reminding fans that they won 8 games in May last year.
And Sunday is the 1-year anniversary of Francisco Lindor moving to the leadoff spot. So, when you try to compare the two seasons, that's where we would be at right now if this was 2024. Another element of this series that was kind of baffling, but obviously when you lose in this category, you're probably not going to come out on top in a 3-game series, is the home run column. The Yankees hit, I think, 3 home runs in the series, 2 on Saturday, and then obviously the big grand slam that broke open that game on Sunday. And the Mets didn't hit a home run. And, we talk a lot about the short porch and Little League Stadium. Both teams played in the same ballpark this weekend. Both teams had the same dimensions to hit at. There were a couple close calls. Brett Beatty looked like he might have gotten a hold of one on Saturday, but it found Aaron Judge's glove out there. Pete Alonso in the first inning on Sunday hit a ball that many thought was gone, died on the warning track. And then the Lindor ball we talked about that off the bat on TV looked like Francisco Lindor was giving the Mets a 5-2 lead, but it just didn't have the legs. Francisco Alvarez on Friday night, by the way, had the 2 longest hit balls in that game. I think he hit one 373 feet, but he only had a couple flyouts to show for it. So when you don't out-homer the Yankees in their ballpark, it's tough to win. The Mets historically have taken advantage of that short porch at Yankee Stadium. The Mets have hit for a lot of power at Yankee Stadium. This weekend, they did not. And that's another big difference maker in the outcome, especially in Game 3, where, you go to the 9th inning, if it's 4-2, you got a puncher's chance. We've seen this Mets team, this group of Mets, come back multiple times. Once the game is 8-2, much different story. But there are some positives as well. You mentioned Brazoban and the big at-bat against Anthony Volpe. And look, it still takes a set of you-know-what to come back from 3-0 and strike the opposing hitter out. He got a chase because Brazoban's got nasty stuff. So he pitches on back-to-back days, did a great job on Saturday, gets the job done on Sunday. Jeff McNeil had a really, really good Sunday night game. A run-scoring hit early and then worked out a big walk later, came around to score the tying run. So that's a positive as well for the Mets. Jeff has been very good since rejoining this team, both offensively and defensively. Jeff's done a great job. We were in the stands yesterday with Gabe. We were talking about Jeff McNeil, and he truly is an above-average defender wherever you put him. You could play him at second base. You could play him at third base. You could play him in left field. You could play him in right field. The Mets have been playing him in center field. He simply does not miss a beat on the defensive side of the ball. So he is so valuable for that. And the extra added offense, of course, Jeff McNeil is a huge part of this team and makes this lineup that much deeper. So those are some positives. And look, Pete Alonso doesn't make the play on Sunday night. He had a very similar play on Saturday. First and third, runners at the corners, 1 out, 7th inning, or maybe the 6th inning. Ball hit to him. He throws a strike home. Luis Torrens applies the tag. So, you know what? I know people were making their Lucas Duda comments on Twitter. Guys, first of all, Lucas Duda, great Met. If you listen to the show, we feel that way here. But Pete Alonso's about to break the Mets all-time home run record. Let's pump the brakes here with the frustration. I get it. Man, I see some crazy things. I know that Twitter is for crazy thoughts, crazy takes, but I mean, this team is what? 28-7, 29-18. Yeah. I think after Sunday night's game, 11 games over 500. And after the Red Sox and Dodgers, we've got the White Sox and the Rockies coming up. So, there's an aura about the Subway Series. I get it. And I think that, the Mets being as good as they are adds to that, right? If this was what it used to be, back in 2011, right? 2012, where it truly was the Mets' chance to take a shot at, the big bad Yankees who were spending all this money, and the Mets at that point in time were not. And the Yankees were a perennial playoff team and the Mets were not. And it was a fun time to just, try to beat them a little bit. That's not the case now. Obviously, the Juan Soto stuff happens, and, that was a big storyline, of course, here this weekend. But I think a lot of it is that these are two very, very good teams. And for 3 games, it was an interesting barometer to see how they match up. Let's talk about the Soto thing, because obviously much was made about that entering the series. And He leaned right into it. Him tipping his cap when he came out for his first at bat, that is the work of someone who truly, truly does not give a you know what about what you think about him. And I think that you can only truly act and be that way when you are so great. And I know Juan Soto didn't make a major impact in this series. Had a couple walks. I think he had a hit. Stung one in his last at bat on Saturday, 113, but it went for an out. But the showmanship was there for Juan Soto. I loved it. I don't know about you.
I loved it too. I mean, look, before the game, he even went on IG and he reposted on his story a video of just Yankee fans hating him. So you knew he was coming into that ready for the moment. From tipping his cap to pretending to throw the Yankee fans the ball to then throwing after making a sick out in Sunday's game, tossing the ball over to the Yankees bullpen. Like, he was having a good time those 3 days. And John, you bring up a really good point by bringing up like the difference in what the Subway Series means now and feels now. Because going into this, like I'm not going to change our narrative. We talked about this on the last episode. We were pumped. We were feeling confident going into it. We felt really good. But I will say it does feel different losing 2 out of 3 this year in years past, because in years past it did feel like, look, this might not be a playoff team this year. If we can get something out of this season, you could beat the Yankees. This year, would I have been gloating if they won 1,000%? Yes. We and John would have been screaming. We would have been acting cocky. We would have been having a great time. But the truth is, losing this series doesn't feel as bad as it did in years past. Also, you want to talk about last year, the Mets win all 4. The Yankees are the team who went to the World Series. Obviously, different circumstances, different leagues, but it's just to put things into perspective. And John, Twitter's crazy. Twitter, you would think that this was 2024 right now with the way people are responding after tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna stay off Twitter. Here's another positive from the weekend. The Mets did a good job with Aaron Judge. They
Yeah.
contained him. I mean, the crazy thing about that 8th inning on Sunday night is that Genesis Cabrera walks the lefty, Trent Grisham, to load the bases, so you have nowhere to put Aaron Judge. You have to pitch to him. Although I guess theoretically you could have gone Buck Showalter and thrown up 4 fingers and given him the base loaded intentional walk like Buck did with Barry Bonds back in the day. But Cabrera goes after Judge and gets him to strike out swinging, makes him look pretty bad, honestly, and then gives up the grand slam to the lefty Cody Bellinger. But as far as Aaron Judge goes, I tweeted this earlier on Sunday morning, Mets pitchers had Aaron Judge swing and miss 7 times on Saturday afternoon. That was Griffin Canning, who did a great job pitching to Judge, changing eye levels, coming in, going out, changing speeds, mixing speeds, did a great job all game long. And Carlos Mendoza said this to Gabe in the stands, let Canning face Judge a 3rd time, which I was a little surprised by, but it worked out.
He said it to Gabe?
I said that to Gabe, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Mendoza said it to Gabe. I was like, when?
No. I said that to Gabe, that I was a little bit surprised that Canning was going to navigate the lineup for a 3rd time through. He didn't go all the way through, but still he faced Judge a 3rd time, but he had success doing it. But Aaron Judge swung and missed 7 times on Saturday. That was a season high for Aaron Judge. Obviously, a couple of those swings and misses coming in the final at bat of the game. Edwin Diaz striking Aaron Judge out, throwing 2 of his fastest pitches all season long. Edwin looked absolutely fantastic. But, outside of a single, I think, on Friday night, and kind of an excuse me ground rule double on Sunday in the 1st inning against David Peterson, Aaron Judge really didn't do anything. So for everyone that wants to say, oh, Juan Soto didn't make much of an impact in the series, it's not true. Soto was on base nonstop. As I mentioned earlier, he stole a couple bases in this series. He stole one against Carlos Rodon. The Yankees have a tough time holding base runners. Yankees pitchers this year have not done a good job controlling the running game. And on Saturday, with Soto on second base, noticed no one was really covering third base. I think it was DJ over there at third base on Saturday. Took the base, and as I mentioned, Vientos sent the ball to the wall. Helps the Mets score a run. Every run mattered in a 3-2 game. So, Soto made an impact, you could arguably say, more so than Aaron Judge in this series. So kudos to the Mets pitchers for doing a good job with Aaron Judge. Kudos to Carlos Mendoza. I heard him on with Evan Roberts when I was driving to Yankee Stadium on Friday. And Evan was kind of joking with Mendy, but I don't really know if he was fully joking, where he pretty much said, hey, don't pitch to this guy. Do not let him beat you. I think Evan was sitting pretty close to the Met dugout, and he said he would scream walk him and give Mendy the advice. But for the most part, outside of the one obvious situation on Sunday where there was a runner on second base with 2 outs, and it couldn't have been a bigger throw 4 fingers up, layup to put him on base. The Mets were aggressive with Judge. They weren't afraid of Judge. They went after Judge, and for the most part, they did a pretty good job with Aaron Judge. It was some other guys that beat the Mets in this series, and you got to tip your cap. Cody Bellinger, who has struggled at times this year, had a huge series, a couple home runs, obviously hits the grand slam on Sunday night. DJ LeMahieu, who recently returned from injury after I made a comment in the stands on Saturday to Vito and Gabe, hits a home run.
About both.
What?
You also said, I think you brought up on the way into the ballpark, Bellinger and DJ LeMahieu specifically you brought up.
Well, happens. But hey, I think that's the right philosophy. That's the right strategy. That's the right process. Mets starting pitchers, especially Griffin Canning, especially David Peterson on Saturday and Sunday, did a really good job. On Friday night, Tyler McGill struggled. And, he said it after the game. 4 walks ain't going to cut it. And he's right. It's not going to cut it. And again, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're running up your own pitch count, and you're making things easier on the other team. And you're putting higher stress pitches on yourself constantly when you're throwing with guys on base. And like I mentioned, this is a really good Yankees lineup. Paul Goldschmidt's having a bit of a resurgent season. We're not seeing the same power that we're used to seeing from Paul Goldschmidt, but he's hitting, 330, 340 this season right now to this point. Got a big hit on a high fastball against Ryan Stanek there on Sunday night. So, like we said, some things to clean up as we kind of decompress after what, is a disappointing series in the Bronx, because it was right there. It was on the tip of your tongue. You could taste 2 of 3, and you could taste just a series victory. I don't care who it's against, whether it's the Yankees, whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's the Kansas City Royals, for all I care. You want to win series, and when you don't win a series, you come away feeling a little bit empty, right? That's just the way it is in baseball over a long season. But you move on, you forget this one. It is what it is. On to Boston.
There's one
my
series.
My favorite team, by the way, the Red Sox.
There's one series I would have loved to win against the Royals if I had to choose.
That was a 5-game series, not a 3-game series.
I'm just joking. You brought up the Royals, so I said that. But, John, you talked a lot about Judge, and I think that makes me ask the question of the episode. Is Aaron Judge afraid of the Mets? Imagine we put that up as the title and the thumbnail.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. Look, the positives of this series were being able to silence Judge for the most part, outside of a big hit in Game 3. But in Game 2, and this is a perfect time to bring up the electric moment of the series presented by PC Richard and Son. Edwin Diaz getting that strikeout against Aaron Judge to end the game, to get that W for the Mets. That is what the Subway Series is about. That is what Edwin Diaz needs. And remember, look, it's funny. The fastest way from point A, nothing matters between point A and point B, right? As long as point B is a save, as point B is a Mets win, that's all that matters. And Edwin Diaz has yet to blow a save for the Mets this year, no matter what, putting traffic on the bases, no matter what, how he's gotten there. He's yet to blow a save for the team this year. And that moment against Aaron Judge was the biggest moment he was in this year. And the confidence that that's going to give Edwin Diaz going forward against teams like the Dodgers and the Red Sox coming up, that's the Edwin Diaz I want to see.
Well, Edwin was obviously ready for the moment and pumped up for the moment, because he was throwing harder than we've seen him throw at any point this season. Slider was nasty. He seemed to have had the edge in the cat and mouse game, because he was fooling Yankee hitters, lefties, righties, it didn't matter. And when Judge steps up to the plate and he's the tying run and there's no one on base with 2 outs, you do in that spot have the luxury of walking him, which I'm sure many people in the stadium, many people around the world watching the game, and possibly people in the Mets dugout were thinking, should we not let this guy tie this game with 1 swing? Should we go challenge Cody Bellinger instead? Obviously, Cody Bellinger made the Mets pay throughout the series, and obviously the decision the Mets made worked out because Edwin Diaz won the battle, getting Judge to chase a high fastball on a 3-2 pitch. And you talk about cat and mouse game. I was sitting in the stands trying to guess pitches, and I was constantly wrong. I was thinking he was throwing a slider there on that 3-2 pitch. See if Judge goes fishing. If he doesn't, worst case scenario, he takes a walk. You move on. You live to fight another day with Cody Bellinger. But instead, the Mets get aggressive. Francisco Alvarez asks for that fastball up high. Judge's eyes get real big, and he can't catch up with that heater up at 100, and the Mets win the ball game. And a great job by the Met bullpen, Vito, on Saturday, combining for 3 2/3 scoreless innings. I know Reed Garrett worked himself into a little bit of trouble, got out of it. DJ LeMahieu hits that line drive right at Juan Soto. He gets out of that jam. But it was really the exclamation point with Edwin Diaz coming in, getting the huge strikeout of Aaron Judge. Just a real pinnacle, best on best moment, right? Aaron Judge, the best player in the game, against Edwin Diaz, who's been one of the best, if not the best closers in baseball for a really long time now. Big power against a big power fastball. And for Diaz, he wins the battle. The Mets win Saturday's ball game. So that was the game Vito and I attended together. So it was nice the Mets can come away with a victory, although Vito may or may not have been in the stands for the final out of the game.
Well, look, my buddy Gabe, one of my best friends, was in town for a wedding that one of our close friends, Shaka and Emma, congratulations on your wedding. Beautiful night, Friday night. So Gabe was like, I'm not going to be able to go to a game at all for the rest of the year. The only chance I have at going to a game is this Saturday afternoon game, but he only could get a flight that left at like 5 o'clock on Saturday. So me being a good friend was like, you know what? I will drive to the game. He was staying a block or two away from me. I was like, I'll drive you to the game. And if you got to leave early, I will leave early so I can give you a ride to the airport. Now, Gabe's a wild kid because I told him, look, you are in charge of when we leave, because if it's up to me, I'm going to stay the whole game. You got to tell me when you want to go. Gabe pushed this to, I think we left top of the 8th.
7th.
We left top of the 8th because he was saying we shouldn't have left in the 8th inning the whole car ride. This kid made it, walked up to his gate when like the first boarding group was getting on.
Yeah, that's nightmare fuel. I can never do that, but
that is, I would never leave. That is not a situation I want to be in. But you know what? It was my friend wanted to get to a game. I had to make it happen.
It is what it is. You took one for the team. Look, I admitted last year I was at the Diekman Judge strikeout game, and I left early on my own accord because the traffic getting out of Yankee Stadium when you park in a garage there is unbearable. And if you don't beat it, you're gonna sit in it for like 90 minutes getting out of a garage. And so for me, the calculus was easy. I either stay and wait, and okay, maybe the Mets win, but I'm still screwed. If I leave and the Mets win, all good. I'm happy. The Mets won. All I really care about ultimately, whether I actually sat there for the final out or not. Or the Mets blow it, and I have to sit there and endure their happiness, which is the last thing I want to be around. And then I have to sit in traffic for 90 minutes. That is a double loss. So my philosophy was, I think, sound thinking. And for you also, the Mets won the game. You got out of there, no traffic at all. Gabe caught his flight. I think everyone wins.
We were listening to the game on the highway back. And also, if another thing I knew, if I stayed to the end of this game, even if the game ended 30 minutes earlier, we're not making it to the airport because the traffic would have been nuts on the way out.
Yeah, you couldn't do that.
I do want to give one shout out to Yankee Stadium. And
I know what this is about.
Before I even say the shout out, I do want to say, before I give them a compliment, all me, John, and Gabe were doing at this game was complaining about everything about that ballpark you can do. So before I give them the compliment, I do want to bring up, you walk into the ballpark, there's signs that say sections this over here, sections this over here. A normal place would tell you sections 200 all the way to 200 and whatever here, section, and then all the other sections this way. What Yankee Stadium does is they only tell you about 5 on each side. So you walk in confused of, is this where I can go, or is this going to be a dead end? So you kind of have to find everything completely on your own. Also, all the beer stands are just in the middle of the concourse. I don't know what that's about. Then your vendors, you have beer lines that go 35 people deep, 40 people deep with only one vendor. on that. Ridiculous. I say all of that.
Having said that,
I want to give him a compliment. Me, Gabe, and John got a little hungry during the game. So I was like, oh, I'll go get one of those chicken tender buckets that I've seen people get. Seems like a decent amount of food. $25. Thought it was going to be like 5 chicken fingers, 6 chicken fingers with a bunch of fries and just a big bucket. I got to give him credit. That thing is nuts, man. The 3 of us devoured this thing. $25. Like it was pounds of food. The amount of fries were crazy. I think there was like 10 chicken fingers in there. One person alone would really struggle to eat that. So as much slack as I want to give that team, the chicken finger bucket, like that's, you gotta respect game.
Yeah, no, it was a good deal. Uber Eats, also a convenient way of getting the food. So yeah, no, I mean, look, it was a nice afternoon at Yankee Stadium. Vito and I realized the first time we really have sat in the stands and watched a game together ever at Citi Field in the control room. So hasn't really happened at all. So it was a good afternoon. I was there Friday night as well. Different vibe. It was cool to be part of the night, obviously, with Soto returning to the Bronx for the first time and seeing just, the reaction in the building, really with his every step. The first time he took the field, pregame warmups. And it was also cool seeing the Mets fans and Yankee fans bonding over the Knicks, which I walked around a little bit. And I was walking around as the Knicks really pulled away and just seeing literally Mets fans and Yankee fans high-fiving. So, that was a special night in New York for sure, obviously with the Knicks game going on and also the big highly anticipated Subway Series game. And the Yankees did a good job updating the crowd with the Knicks score and everyone kind of banded together. So that was cool to see as well.
Wait, also one more complaint. The gate, the way you get into the ballpark also terrible.
Well, I think you took us to the wrong gate. That's my theory.
I don't know. I don't go to that place. All I know is they were like,
I don't think gate 8 was for us. That's my theory.
The security guard goes, no line at gate 8.
Ah.
And that's the only reason. I don't know.
There was a line, by the way, at
why
gate
would
8.
I scream gate 8? I don't know gate 8. But the security guard goes, go to gate 8. There's no line there. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. But like in general, that place, it's a nightmare getting in there. So those are all my complaints. And then John, we're just one more thing about comparing last year to this year. Jolly Olive tweeted out the same thing we've been talking about right now. Just imagine everybody needs to chill out. I know it's a frustrating loss. And he mentioned what happened a year ago tonight. And a year ago tonight, Mets are playing the Marlins.
Oh, I know what happened. Yeah.
Edwin Diaz gives up a 3-run home run. Marlins ends up winning. No, 3-run home run.
No, but he blew a 4-run lead.
Yeah, then I was about to say they lose the game. They end up losing the game 10-9. So again, like look at the difference of worlds we're in. Edwin Diaz blowing a game against the Marlins in the middle of May versus Edwin Diaz coming in Subway Series at Yankee Stadium to strike out one of the best players this sport has ever seen in Aaron Judge. I will take the start that this team is off right now. Now it's all about how you finish. So I feel good about this team. John feels good about this team. But if we didn't, I also feel like this, John, if we didn't feel as good about this team as we feel right now, I don't think we would be talking as openly the way we're speaking right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, you get off to the fast start. You bank those victories, right? Like you don't give them back. And when you get closer to the deadline and you're assessing, what moves you want to make, where you need to shore your club up, how real a contender you can be, especially with some possible additions being made. These victories early on, they all count. They all matter. That's why, yes, it's May and, we can't get crazy about a game in April or May or even June. But at the same time, you do want to win as many games as you can to pad that total in the win column. But look, I said it at the top of the episode, and I know there was one comment on our last YouTube video that said this is state media. This is not state media. This is not state media. I will be the first to tell you that the defensive miscues need to be cleaned up, and I know that guys in the clubhouse will say the same thing. The amount of free passes can happen. It makes life too easy on the other team. Hitting with runners in scoring position. It is not an art form. It is something that comes and goes. I think ESPN had this stat they showed Juan Soto's numbers with runners in scoring position last year compared to this year. What, you think he just forgot how to do it? No, it's random. It's random. And you know what? He's going to go on a stretch at some point this year where he, is 8 for his last 12 with RISP. That's just the way that goes. We've talked about this a lot. We talked about this last year when the Mets went to Anaheim and had a bad weekend in Anaheim. And that was in August. That was after the deadline. The Mets, it was very clear who they were fighting with, what they were chasing down. That Sunday afternoon game, Griffin Canning shoved it down their throats. The Mets went, I think, like 1 for 11 with RISP, made mistakes all game long. And we hopped on here. We did not have much to say at all in that podcast, that recap episode. I kind of want to go back and see how we spun that one. But, RISP is going to come and go. The Mets are going to have games where they go 9 for 12 with RISP. They're going to have games where they go 1 for 12. That's how it goes all the time. But, yeah, you want to see the mental mistakes and the unforced errors be cleaned up a little bit. The Mets have done a very good job to this point for the most part before this last week in doing so. I'd like to see them get back to not making those mistakes, not helping the other team, especially when you're playing a viable opponent like the Yankees, like the Red Sox are, like the Dodgers will be. Although, like I said, the Dodgers did just get swept by the Angels. And man, the Dodgers are making some crazy moves, dude. Like they are, not that they're baseball moves, I get it, but they made 2 moves this week, just really breaking apart the fabric of what we have come to know this Dodger. I don't want to call it a dynasty because they've only won 1 title during this era of Dodger baseball.
1.5.
2, you're right. Excuse me. I honestly forgot about 2020. I wasn't even counting that. 1.5 is a fair estimate. Although if the Mets won the World Series that year, that would be 1.5. It would count extra.
I'm going to be, oh, really? No, because I'm going to be, this is a hot take, but and you might disagree with me. I kind of was like, please don't make this the year the Mets win the first World Series.
I would have. No, come on. We would have. No,
I don't know. In that season, it would have just sucked. If that was
easy to say now. But anyway, the Dodgers DFA their longest tenured player in Austin Barnes. And then on Sunday, they release Chris Taylor, who was part of so many huge Dodger moments, hit the walk-off home run in the wild card game a couple years ago. So interesting times with that LA team right now.
And real quick, it's funny, how little teams know about other teams' fan bases. I mean, other team, one fan base knows about another because Chris Taylor got a tribute video on the Dodgers Twitter, and I saw people just so befuddled and this is ridiculous. Oh, why don't we give it up for and it was do not know what a specific player meant to a certain team. It was a really funny thing that I was seeing on Twitter in response to the Dodgers posting a Chris Taylor thank you video.
Chris Taylor was a great Dodger. I know. Very much so like Jeff McNeil, played all over the place, had huge hits, like I said, for that team. So, yeah. Speaking of tribute videos, not surprised that Juan Soto did not get one.
No.
Not surprised at all. He was there for a year. I get it. Scoring lover, left at the altar, whatever. It would have called more attention to a situation that did not need more attention. He stepped out. He tipped his cap. I think that, after the first return, I think Yankee fans will remember the time more fondly with Soto. I think, obviously, they don't want to see success in Queens from Soto. I think it's natural. I think any, flip side of the equation would feel the same way. I don't believe, although I wasn't there Sunday night, so if anyone was and can confirm or deny, I didn't see anything on Twitter. Clay Holmes tribute video.
Yeah.
Clay Holmes.
I guess the excuse was that he wasn't pitching.
Yeah, but I mean, the Mets gave one to Scherzer. He wasn't pitching when Texas came back. So you don't need to be in the game to get a tribute video necessarily. I think Clay Holmes probably deserves one. I do.
We also need to see it also depends on how often do the Yankees do it. Do the Yankees do it for guys that were there?
I know that they did one for Aaron Hicks when he returned. Now, Hicks was there for a while. But he wasn't a very popular Yankee by any means. I mean, amongst the fan base, he was kind of a disappointment. Signed a 7-year extension. When they got him from Minnesota, I thought it was a great move for the Yankees when they made it, and it obviously didn't really work out. He had some injury issues, and it just didn't work out. But I know Aaron Hicks got one, and look,
did Gary Sanchez get one?
Who?
Do you think Gary Sanchez got one?
I don't know for a fact. I know Hicks did. I don't know about Gary.
I'm saying you
I would
think that.
assume yes, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But just curious. I mean, look, it's a very touchy thing. It's not a huge deal. I didn't know if Clay Holmes got one. But I kind of wish Clay Holmes pitched in this series because I think a lot of people, a lot of Yankee fans, truly, it's like revisionist history with Clay Holmes. How good he was for the Yankees, and I get that there were some blown saves here and there, and at times he lost command and had a couple of blow up innings, but the numbers are the numbers. He was nasty as a Yankee. Adjusted ERA north of 130 as a Yankee, like 30% better than league average. To put that in layman's terms, he was very good. And now he's doing it as a starter. And their loss is our gain. But yeah, just curious as to whether they did it on Sunday night. That was the one game I was not at. Just because I think Clay Holmes is deserving of a welcome back video. It doesn't need to be a tribute video. He didn't
A graphic.
win them the World Series. This isn't, John Tavares returning to the island. By the way, the Maple Leafs. Sorry, I had to get that in there. I had to get that in there.
Yeah, you bringing up like revisionist history and like being upset about one thing. It's funny. It's because we brought him up before. It's similar to Lucas Duda. One bad throw home, kind of like a lot of people talk bad about Lucas Duda for a guy who had a really good career as a Met, and should be a lot more beloved than he is. Obviously, different circumstances, different levels with Clay Holmes, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I do think you should have gotten a graphic, a tribute, or something. Maybe not a full like minute piece, but some kind of like welcome back, Clay. Thank you, Clay. But I'm glad that series is in the rear view. And John, you brought up the Angels series. I was just thinking about the Mariners series last year. I was just thinking about like what we had to talk about after that series when the Mets like didn't put up any offense for 3 days.
Same road trip, I think. Yeah, they went to Seattle and
part of that Colorado one, right?
Yeah, it was the same trip. Yeah, that was a disaster.
I mean, the
That
St.
was
Louis one, part of the St. Louis one, right?
St. Louis was the one game, and
Yeah,
then they ended
was
in
that stretch.
Yeah, they ended in Seattle, and they came home for the only homestand of August. They had it was Marlins, ended with Baltimore. I know the Marlins were Oakland. It was Oakland, Miami, and Baltimore. That's who it was.
Yes.
Anyway, I don't want to wax poetic and be too much of an almanac here and walk down memory lane. So I won't do that.
But it's just again to bring up that this was a frustrating series, but like go back to last year, there was a lot more frustrating series.
It's May 18th. It's you guys are going to be watching this on May 19th. They come to our house July 4th, which seems like forever from now because it's 6-7 weeks before the Yankees come back. We don't have to worry about them. Well, I've said this probably two times. I'm going to say it a third time. Yankees are really good. That's a really good team. That's a scary team in the American League. A pretty weak American League. The Red Sox have been a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself and bring us a curse here. Like I kind of made a critical comment about Bellinger, who has been struggling a bit. I know he has a 13-game hitting streak, but not having a great season. And DJ, who's been just battling injuries for the last few years, but the Red Sox have been a little bit underwhelming this year. I expected a little bit more from Boston, who really put together a competitive team in the offseason, going out, getting Crochet and bringing in Bregman. And, Rafael Devers is, I think, a top 10 hitter in the sport, all the off-field drama, aside. The Rays have been disappointing for me. That's a pitching rotation that I thought would have a lot more success. I know McClanahan's gone down again, but still, they've really not been great. And they've had a lot of home games in the first half. They play a ton of road games in the second half because the weather situation in Tampa with no roof. So baseball flipped their schedule to give them more road games in the rainy months in Florida. The Orioles are obviously having an absolute disaster of a season after, making the playoffs in 23 for the first time in a while. And then last year having a huge season until it all kind of slipped away and they wind up not winning the division, going to the wild card round and losing at home to Kansas City. And now, barring them finding a middle infielder who was a Latin pop sensation, having that sort of miraculous return and a McDonald's mascot character that can, drag them from the depths of the American League East, the Orioles season's kind of over. The American League Central is what it is. The Twins have, by the way, went on a huge winning streak. Twins have been playing real good ball. So everyone that had a problem with the Mets losing 2 of 3 in Minnesota, well, look at that. The Kansas City Royals went on a big run after a really slow start. The American League West is interesting. The Mariners have had a really nice start. That offense has been a lot better than people thought it would be. The Yankees just took 2 of 3 from them. So the Yankees are a force to be reckoned with in the American League. That's okay. That's okay. The Mets went there. You lose game 1, you win game 2. Game 3 goes down to the 8th inning. The Mets had a couple chances late in the game, didn't come through. The Mets leave the door open with a couple miscues defensively, and Bellinger blows it open with a grand slam, and that's it. But we continue to learn things about our team, about other teams. That's the beauty of the length of the baseball season is, like the Twins, great example. The Mets go there, they're in last place. They seem listless offensively, not a very sexy team whatsoever. And all of a sudden, I think they rattled off like 10 straight wins, something like that. And all of a sudden, they're a team that looks like they could be in a playoff race. So, that's how it goes. I've said this a few times. I said it after the Diamondback series that the Diamondbacks were the best team to date the Mets have played. When the Mets got the Cubs last weekend, Mother's Day weekend, the Mets took 2 of 3 from Chicago, a good team. I think we just saw the best team the Mets have played so far. I do. And also, the Mets got the top of that pitching rotation this weekend, which, just happens to be the case. The Mets almost miss Garrett Crochet, but they don't miss Garrett Crochet. They're going to see him on Wednesday. That sucks. You'll see that lady crocheting in the outfield at Fenway. She sits there and she crochets when Crochet pitches. It's very nice. But the Mets saw Rodon, who outside of a couple blow-up starts this year has been really good. They saw Clark Schmidt, who, struggled, battled. I think the Mets probably fared a little bit worse than they should have with Schmidt. They were on Schmidt. Schmidt wasn't missing many bats. He wasn't really confusing many Mets hitters. And they got Max Fried, who is off to an incredible start during his Yankee tenure and was great on Sunday night. So, that's just the way it goes, right? You catch a team at the wrong time. You catch the top of their rotation and is what it is, right?
You also put 2 runs up against Max Fried, which is like the max he usually allows. And just in general, like I will say, like going into game 3, Max Fried I know is one of the best pitchers in baseball, but like when you look at his numbers against the Mets, it's not as shut down dominant as I think a lot of fans would have thought going into it. But look, Mets lose 2 out of 3, move on to Boston, then they'll play the Dodgers. And if you want to look at a game that's going to matter to the Mets a lot more in the long run, that Dodgers series is going to be much more important than that Yankees series because that's what we're going to be looking at when October rolls around. That's who you got to beat to get to the final spot. So, we'll see. And one final thing from me, it's like you said, John, it's when you play teams is so different over the course and the peaks and valleys of a season. I'll bring up our division itself right now. The Phillies, when we play them, we sweep them at Citi Field. They've went on a heater since. And we said on this podcast, Mets fans, I know it's fun to watch the Braves lose, but like, don't get ahead of yourselves. This team is not going to stay down for long. The Braves are, as of this recording, at least a game over 500, I believe, as long as they didn't lose tonight. No, they definitely
they won. They won 10-4.
But I think they would still be a game under because I looked at it when this game started. So a game over. But my point is, like, there's peaks and valleys to a season. All teams are good. All teams are bad. We're just going to play the Red Sox. Just chill out, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Phillies have their problems too. They just lost Jose Alvarado. Aaron Nola just went on the injured list after a really rough start to the season. So, every team has its issues, and issues come and they go. And, obviously, the injury bug is something you want to try to avoid being bit by. Look, AJ Minter, that was a big loss to this Met bullpen. Yeah. That was a really big loss. AJ Minter's a guy in the 8th inning there. He could possibly just start that 8th inning. He extends that Mets bullpen, the weapons that Mendy has to work with. The Yankees just had a major addition to their bullpen in Jonathan Loaizaga, who just came off the shelf and is back now after rehabbing an injury. Made his season debut, I think, Sunday. Yeah, he didn't pitch on Friday or Saturday. But that lengthens the Yankee bullpen a lot.
I think he pitched Friday.
Did he pitch Friday? Okay, you might be right. So I left Friday early. I'm not here to just out you.
I knew you did, but I wasn't going to call you out on it.
You should. It was the right move. I mean, it's the right move. I'm not sitting in traffic. I'm not. It's never happening.
If we did go tonight, we would have left early tonight too and got home to record this episode. I
Maybe.
probably would have said, John, call me from the car.
Maybe. Dude, opening day to 2023, I was at Yankee Stadium. I made the cardinal sin. It was the first time I'd ever driven there. Parked on the rooftop of a garage. Stayed the whole game. Was working the game, so leaving early wasn't an option. Stayed the whole game. Took me 90 minutes to get out of the garage. And it was a 1 o'clock game. So I got into rush hour traffic, and it took me 2 hours to drive home. I think I listened to the entire Mets season opener. The Mets were in Miami opening the season 2 years ago. So I learned my lesson, and I have the scars to prove it, and I will never, ever get caught in that Bronx traffic again. So, yes, I left early Friday.
And I'll give you guys a tip, because this is what I did. I went on Reddit, was reading all the tips and tricks on parking at Yankee Stadium. Took a little 8-minute walk, went over to the Bronx Terminal Mall, parked there, $28. Not a lot of people there, no hardship getting in and out. Nice little breezy walk. So I would recommend that to you, fans. But John, I feel like we said we were going to do 30 minutes absolute maximum, and then we pulled a Meet at the Apple classic, just going way over the line, running the red light. But it feels good.
We talk through it. We're just talking through it. That's all we're doing. That's why we do this. That's why, we love talking with fans when we meet. We met some Meet at the Apple listeners at Yankee Stadium. So shout out to you guys. But that's what it's all about, right?
We don't talk till we get here. We don't have a pre-conversation. We literally do not have a conversation about what we're going to talk about really until we get here, and we just feel it out.
Brandon Nimmo has his way of going about handling a loss. We all have ours, whether people tweet it out or grab your microphone and just, talk about it. It's therapeutic. So that's what we're doing. And it's why we can never keep it under, 30 minutes when we say we're going to. But hey, that's what it's all about, right?
Yep. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to Meet at the Apple. Make sure to follow, subscribe, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I say it every episode now. I see how many of you guys listen. I see how many of you guys subscribe on Spotify. If you're listening, go give a review, because the numbers aren't even on how many 5-star reviews we have and how many people listen to the podcast. So I'm asking you guys, give us a 5-star review and actually leave a written review. You would not believe how much of a difference that makes for the show to help us grow. Follow us on Twitter at Vito Khaleesi, at JMB9191. But before we get out of here, we got to talk about our best friends over at PC Richard & Son.
Yeah, I've got a review. It's about PC Richard & Son. They have the absolute best prices, the best selection, the best everything that you can ask for if you're in the market for a TV, if you need a fridge, appliances, mattresses, whatever it is. They've got the best, friendliest, and most importantly, the most knowledgeable staff. They are the best in the game. They've been doing it since 1903. So, guys, please check out your local PC Richard & Son. They will take care of you. They take care of us. They've been taking care of their customers since 1903. Check them out. We will check you guys out after the Red Sox series. Looking forward to it. Mets going to Fenway Park for the first time since 2023. Always fun when the Mets and Red Sox get together. Like I said before, my second favorite team. I own a lot of Red Sox stuff. What do you guys think about that? Is it kosher? Obviously, the enemy of the enemy is your friend. This goes back to 03, 04. Hating on the Yankees, loving the Red Sox. So I don't know. Maybe it's not cool. Maybe you think it is cool. But regardless, Mets and Red Sox this week at Fenway. Mets try to get back in the win column. Vito, that kind of came out of nowhere, but sorry.
No, it's fine. And you know what, Mets fans? Keep an eye on that Red Sox social media, because I feel like those people who run that social media account are up to some nasty business. You got to keep an eye on them. So I want you to just laser focus on anything the Red Sox put out over the next 3 days. Yeah.
Good call out.
We got to stay on top of that. Red Sox, Twitter, Instagram, everything. Stay on top of it, Mets fans. Anything you see, alert us. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time at the Apple.